The essence of Hanukkah is to publicize the miracle. It's to be public about our Jewish pride and our intent on Jewish survival. It's about having kavanah, to be Jewish in the public square and bring out the light of our tradition and the proud peoplehood that we have. And amidst every society where we live, in Israel and around the globe. We've all seen the public Chanukiot, the large menorahs, even at municipal centers in America. In fact, it was a challenge in the Supreme Court to be able to kindle and light the Hanukkah menorah publicly in amidst American society. The sentiment that we bring our Chanukiot, our menorahs, our Hanukkah lamps, out into the public square is one that needed to be guarded and fortified in this land where we can express our religious commitments so publicly and with pride and strength. Hanukkah alone, and Hanukkah particularly, calls upon us to make such a public proclamation. There is no publicizing the miracle that we have to do outwardly during Passover, even if we open the door a little to let those who are hungry come and eat. We don't have the commandment to publicize the miracle in the public square. We don't have, with Purim, the kind of commandment to publicize the miracle outwardly. We come into our synagogues, we take the groggers, we make some noise, but we don't do so at the doorway. For Hanukkah, it's different. We are commanded, Pirsuma Denisa. Yes, to light the Hanukkah lights is a mitzvah, and we have blessings for it. But the placement of the Hanukkah lamp is what is essential. In our time, that may mean putting it in our windows, in our New York City apartments and homes, wherever we are. If you walk around the beautiful alleyways and streets of the old city in Jerusalem, where our daughter Shuli is right now, you can see the Hanukkah menorahs glow in special glass boxes made just for that purpose, even built into the walls right next to the door frames of certain homes, spaces for a Chanukiah, for the Hanukkah lamps to glow across from the mezuzah, so that we bring the sparks of Jewish life and the flames of Jewish souls and the light of Jewish memory and commitments into the street. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory said the following: non-Jews respect Jews who respect Judaism. And when we're embarrassed about being public with our Jewish identity, our Jewish commitments, our Jewish values, people are on to us. Rabbi Sacks reminded us that one doesn't always have to be in the mode of making a public statement of one's inner soul Jewish commitments. But at Hanukkah time, it was worth being as public as the Liberty Bell sits in the middle of the Philadelphia Mall near Constitution Hall to say, here is what America is all about. The story is told of a time when it was even dangerous to be Jewish in public. Everything was dark, darker than ever, when our people were kept in concentration camps during the Nazi era, Yamach Shemam. In one of those camps, Breslau, Hunsfeld. Women were imprisoned. And as Hanukkah approached, they risked their lives to create whatever they needed for the kindling of the Hanukkah lights. They pulled loose threads from clothing and made wicks and kept drops of oil from machinery so that they could kindle lights during the festival of Hanukkah. And on the first night, it was a young woman named Leah Newman who lit the Hanukkah menorah and led everyone in the singing of Ma'ot Tzur, trying to bring out the strength of the great Maccabean revolt, trying to harness the strength of Judith, the heroine who's associated with the holiday of Hanukkah now, for her willingness to fight the great forces, in her case, the Greek forces, who were arrayed against them. Everything went well for 4 nights of Hanukkah for these brave women. But on the 5th night, as the flames flickered, bright and lighting up the otherwise pitch dark camp of death, the SS guards came running over, certain that these women were sending out some kind of encoded message with these candle lighting, candles burning, these wicks alight, sending a signal perhaps to an overhead bomber, or helping them determine the location of this installation. The SS guard flung the door open, and all the women, Leah Newman, was certain their end was near. "What's going on here?" shouted the guard. And Leah, without thinking about it, responded strongly, swiftly, confidently, "We are here celebrating Hanukkah." And the guard looked. The SS officer took account of what was happening, turned around, and left. From that day forward, there were reports of how incredibly impressed certain of those guards were with the spiritual strength and determination of those women who were imprisoned and who risked it all. Imperiled souls, dying of starvation, kindled those Hanukkah lights to say that you will not snuff out the great lights of the Jewish people. This inspiring story about kindling our lights in public is ever more important in our time. We know that certain forces sometimes align against us, like the decrees that Antiochus IV made back between 167 BCE and 164. No Jewish sacrifices were to be made in the temple. Instead, impure animals and pigs were to be offered, dedicated to Zeus on the temple altar. Pagan temples were to be built throughout Judea. There was a systematic temple building project to convert the Jews of Judea. No circumcisions were allowed, on pain of death to child and parent. The Torah was to be forgotten, its legal systems replaced with Greek law. Shabbat and holidays were to be desecrated. The celebration of the emperor's birthday was enforced, including eating treif sacrifices. Participation in Dionysian processions, crowned with ivy, tattooed, their bodies tattooed with ivy, to become part of the Dionysian cult. It was prohibited to identify as a Jew, and names must be changed. What forces have aligned against the Jewish people, against Jewish survival, spiritually and physically? And sometimes from among those decrees that we heard in the days of Antiochus and those that the Maccabees had to fight against, we still hear of those who would rise up and try, like Antiochus did, to convert the Jews away from our faith. As a matter of fact, just this year, a colleague of mine writes about a time when he was approached by a minister from a neighboring congregation. And instead of meeting each other to share the light of each other's traditions, this minister explained that he was there, Bible in hand, to help my rabbinic colleague find the salvation that he needed so that he could be saved, that his soul would go on to heaven. Oy vey for the potential that this was an interfaith dialogue. Oy vey for the spirit of community, for the spirit of love thy neighbor that extends from the same Bible that religious communities in America share. And so in that moment, when this colleague of mine thought to explain to this minister about one of the holidays that we celebrate and how and why, he chose Hanukkah. We not only light the Hanukkah lamps, our Chanukiot, in our homes and place them prominently to remind us of the great light of Jewish tradition and how it brings together family, how it celebrates wondrous victories. We bring that Hanukkah lamp outward to Persume Denisa, to promote and advertise the great miracles wrought for us. When we found the strength and confidence that God gives and grants to stand up against forces that would have created a network of conversion centers in the name of the religion of the time, in the spiritual ascension of the day. If you are with us, life. If you are against us, death. Yet the Jewish people stood up. And yet the Jewish people stands up against those who would believe fundamentally that without conversion to their faith, they are condemned to their version of a hell. What we share is light. What we increase is light as a metaphor for holiness. What we believe in is that from the strength of faith community, Jewish community, alongside others who believe in the moral values and foundation that Torah provides, that all will receive in the end their just deserts. All will conspire against hate and proselytizing. All will rise up to embrace his or her own traditions that increase the light. As Beit Hillel said, we go from 1 candle to 8, to be ma'alin ba'kodesh, to increase holiness and increase the possibility that so many lights of so many souls, Jewish and others included, can fill a world of darkness with light. Kitzat min ha'or, migaresh harbe min ha'choshech. Only a little bit of light dispels so much darkness. And we who keep the flames, we who place them in the public square in order to show our deep commitments to our own people, Am Yisrael Chai, to our own Torah values, bring strength and light to those who also need to find their own ways in the dark, to fight against those who would forcibly convert others, who would undermine the spiritual pursuits of those who seek the kind of light and peace that is at the core of the great project of the Jewish people to this day into our time. When we bless the Hanukkah lights, upon kindling them, we say not only are we commanded to light the lights, lahadlik ner shel Hanukkah, but we give thanks to God, she'asa nisim la'avotenu b'yamim hahem u'v'zaman hazeh. We give thanks to God who wrought miracles for our ancestors and who renews miraculous spiritual life in our time. Of course, within Jewish law, there's machloket, there's disagreement. Is it and who's renewing miraculous religious and spiritual strength in our time? Or is it a bracha that says, who made miracles happen b'zaman hazeh, at this time of year for our ancestors? Well, it's both, of course. God wrought miracles for our ancestors at this time of darkness that happened, at the time of darkness that was brought upon them by fundamentalist, secularist, Hellenizer rulers of antiquity. And of course, it is in our understanding the kind of commitment to recognizing that God provides strength, like God did to Leah Newman, for Leah Newman and the women of the Breslau-Hunsfeld concentration camp, and who strengthens us in our resolve to be Jewish both inwardly and outwardly, publicly, and embracing the Jewish values that will indeed be light wherever darkness prevails. Yehi or, may there be light, and may it come from our kindling the Hanukkah lamps and placing them so publicly in our windows or at our doors for the world to see and celebrate with us. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Hanukkah Sameach.